It seems like every year in the NFL draft, there's that one quarterback that physically at least, just stands out as kind of a cut above the rest and just more than anybody else looks, from a physical standpoint, like the best equipped to become a big time stud NFL starting quarterback. And in this year's draft, I think that classification clearly goes to Logan Thomas from Virginia Tech. I mean, you're talking about a kid here that's 6'6", legit, maybe 245, 250 pounds. He just looks like a football player. He looks like a big badass. He looks like somebody that, in theory, should be equipped to be a franchise NFL quarterback. And when you look at some of the strengths that he does bring to the table, obviously his size being one of the biggest ones. I mean, 6'6", legit, 245, 250 pounds. So he can see over the offensive and defensive line. He can see all the throwing windows down the field. He can take that pounding of a 16-game NFL season. That size is something that you just can't coach. You just can't teach. Either you have it or you don't. And not only is the kid tall, but he's very well built. He's very muscular. He's very well put together in general. Now, to go along with that great size, he has incredible arm strength. I would argue maybe one of the two best pure arms in this 2014 quarterback class. He has a hose. He has a cannon. Not one of the all-time great cannons that I've seen, but compared to his contemporaries, his peers in this draft class, he has, to me, beyond question, the strongest or maybe the second strongest arm out of everybody. He's also a very mobile quarterback. He fits that mold that the NFL is trending towards with guys like Russell Wilson and Colin Kaepernick and the like, of having that quarterback that can sit there and make plays on his feet, that can roll out to the right and throw, roll out to the left and throw, gain yardage as a rusher, be a dual threat quarterback. And obviously a Logan Thomas with his size and with his mobility and his athleticism can do just that. This is a kid that was originally recruited to Virginia Tech to play tight end and very well probably could have played tight end. And if he would have played tight end, might be a first-round pick in this 2014 NFL draft. I would also anticipate that he's going to be a very durable player, unless he puts on a lot of bad kind of garbage cheeseburger weight, because at 6'6", 245, 250 pounds, he's going to be bigger than a lot of the linebackers that are going to be tackling him. Frankly, he'll be as big as some of the defensive ends that are going to be pursuing him in the NFL. So this is a kid that seems like he is very well equipped, like I mentioned, with his size, with his arm strength, with his mobility, to be able to make a way for himself in the NFL as a starting quarterback. But of course, looks can be deceiving. And when you look at Logan Thomas, yes, he has great size, he has great arm strength, he has great mobility, and he seems like he'll be a very durable quarterback. He needs a lot of work in the other aspects of his game. His accuracy is shoddy, to say the very least. His pocket presence and decision making are not all that good. His mechanics could definitely use some work. He has a bit of a wind up in his throw. He could better utilize his lower body as part of the throwing motion. He tended to be a one read and go guy in college. There were a couple of moments where I would see him go through some form of progressions, but a lot of the times it seems like he did have trouble reading opposing defenses, making good decisions, and going through his progressions. One read, and that's it. You stick to it, and then you go. He has a lot of work to do at the NFL level in order to become an NFL starting quarterback. Now, when you look at it on the surface, you sit there and say, from a look standpoint, Logan Thomas is a first-round pick. From an actual play on the field standpoint, and with the different varying weaknesses in his game, some of which are very, very weak indeed, he looks like a seventh-round pick. Overall, if I was drafting, I would probably be looking at drafting Logan Thomas somewhere around the fourth round, and here's why. Because ultimately, when you get to that portion of the draft, you're trying to gamble. You are gambling, and you're trying to find guys that can be steals. So you're trying to find guys that can develop into big-time players that you didn't have to take with a first or second-round pick. And with that size, with that arm strength, with that accuracy, you would think that somebody would come along, a really good system, a really good organization, a good quarterback coach, good offensive coordinator, devote some time to working on some of those things, improving how he reads opposing defenses, learning how to better go through his progressions, working on his pocket presence and his comfort level in the pocket so that way he's not so quick to always want to scramble out and bail out when sometimes it's not called for. Definitely work on his accuracy, work on his mechanics, shorten up his arm motion a little bit, incorporate more of his entire lower body and his entire body as a whole into his throwing motion so that way he could get even more out of his arm strength and probably improve his accuracy quite a bit. He's a very intriguing, very appealing prospect. Like I said, if I'm sitting there, maybe even towards the tail end of the third round, and I'm looking at trying to find a guy that in 2 or 3 years could potentially be a difference maker for me, Logan Thomas could be that. Now, he could also flop out miserably as an NFL quarterback, and that's fine because, again, if I'm looking at it as a fourth round, if this kid doesn't make it as a quarterback, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, my God, this kid could play outside linebacker, this kid could play tight end, but I am still drafting him to be a quarterback first. It's just, it makes me feel that much more at ease if I take this kid with a fourth round pick, let's say, because I feel like he could be a football player somewhere, but I still feel like his best chance to make it in the NFL long term is as a quarterback. That arm strength, that size, that mobility, that package does not come along every day. In terms of the grading system for him, from a physical tool standpoint, I put all that information in the description box down below. My final grade for him was 66.5. And I kind of vacillated in terms of who I was going to compare him to. There were a couple of different guys that I looked at, and I said, yeah, I could see some of that in him, guys like E.J. Manuel and the like. But I think the closest comparison would be somebody like a Terrelle Pryor. These are a lot of the same things I was said about Terrelle Pryor coming out of Ohio State. And, he's had his moments in the NFL with the Oakland Raiders, but he's also had those moments where, frankly, he looked very bad, and he looked like somebody that you couldn't count on to be a long-term answer at quarterback. And that could be what we're looking at with Logan Thomas here. But that athleticism and that arm strength and that size, it's worth a gamble. There are other quarterbacks that people think of that are more highly touted that I would pass on to take this kid. Because again, when you're at that level of the draft, in that area of the draft, you're trying to gamble on upside and potential, and Logan Thomas is full of it, brother.